Hello and welcome to episode number 86 of the Rollo and Slappy Show. Today is April 9th, 2018. I am Rollo McFlugel and with me is Slappy Jones 2 and we are both at McFlugel.com. The show notes page for this episode is McFlugel.com/86. And as always, your sponsor for this episode is LibertyMugs.com. We'll talk about that later, I guess. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to Slappy, and he's going to introduce our guests and our episode topic.
Yeah, thank you, Rollo. Thank you, everyone, for listening to the Rollo and Slappy Show. Today is game 2 of the Home and Home with the Rollo and Slappy Show and the Friends Against Government podcast. Yeah, so welcome to the show, Car and Bird.
Thanks for having me.
It was so hard not to.
It was so hard not to jump in right at the beginning.
I was waiting for it.
we were trying to be nice.
Slappy, were you like giggling during the entire beginning of that? Because like
a little bit, because I'm waiting for something.
I cannot keep a straight face.
I couldn't let you do it. But really, after he said episode 86, I just wanted to go, yeah, you got it that time.
I nailed it when I was on your episode, guys.
Oh man! Thank you for having us.
Yeah,
it's awesome.
It feels good. It feels right. It feels real good to be elevating y'all's podcast. You know, getting it up to muster.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
We try.
That.
And this is Car. You go into what's the right term I'm looking for, Rollo? We got a 2-time guest on the show.
Oh, Hall of Fame.
Yeah,
Veteran?
We'll do that.
Veterans.
Veteran of the podcast. Yeah,
that's right. Yeah, that's right. And the other guest on the line actually has not done that. Is that correct?
To me.
That is correct.
And would therefore be inferior in some way.
You're up on levels of Vivek, who technically we split an episode that he was on, so technically he was 3 episodes.
He's been on 3 times.
Yeah, so Car, you got some work to do.
So okay, he's the leader.
I'll do a little bit of work. I can do a little bit of work, but it looks like I've done a lot of work already, and it's gotten me into some pretty thin air. So I'll take it.
Yeah.
So one thing I like that we're doing, and I want to make it happen even more, is this like fake that we hate each other.
Yeah.
Wait a minute.
It's the best.
Fake?
I'm faking that I hate you guys.
Oh, okay.
It's just a friendly rivalry between podcasts.
Yeah.
Is it? I wasn't cued in. I thought,
You thought it was real?
I thought we were gonna have like blood sports, and
it goes back and forth. You know, it goes back and forth. Sometimes Rollo's humor makes me want to make it real, but most of the time, sometimes Rollo, you say something and it is like a drop kick to the chest.
That's but well, you guys have to realize that my humor is not for the entertainment of other people. It is solely for myself. And if anyone finds humor in it and finds enjoyment out of it, then that's
avoid them.
That's
There's something wrong there.
It's like it's like a public good.
Yeah.
Which, speaking of that, Steven Crowder needs a... Does he consider himself a libertarian? I'm hijacking my own episode right now.
Okay, that's fine.
Yeah, because I still didn't introduce the topic.
That's
I'll
fine.
allow it. I'm actually a judge for this, too. So
if I could just say, we recorded our episode earlier, but we release after you guys. Car and I talked about that exact subject. And how fucking infuriating that is.
Oh, well, since
I was unfamiliar with it.
I was gonna say I'm the only one here unfamiliar with it. Then
so
let's get into it.
I would love to go back into it for sure.
Our episode is going to drop tonight, and yours is until Wednesday. So we'll just say now that your podcast episode copied off our idea.
Oh, I see.
Little do you know, I referenced the podcast first.
I didn't know you had a time machine.
It's like it's like a Good, the Bad, the Ugly, like a Mexican standoff.
Some Trump 4D chess going on.
Wow.
And boom, we're in Syria.
Okay.
Exactly. Yeah,
so,
that too.
Bird, you're the guest, and you brought it to our attention about this. So do you want to explain what we're talking about?
The Steven Crowder thing? Yeah.
Well, is he considered a libertarian?
Okay,
so and I mean that, because I kind of want to tie this into what we're talking about.
Well, it'll absolutely tie into what we're talking about.
I never thought he was considered a libertarian, but
here's the thing. What Car and I were talking about it earlier, and I'm glad we're doing this again because it's still in my head because it's always bothered me. It still bothers me. Crowder considers himself I consider Crowder to be a conservatarian.
Right, kind of the
by his own
constitutionalist.
admission. Now, I think that's a contradictory statement. I really do. I don't think that's a thing. I don't think it can be a thing. I think he could be classified as probably a paleoconservative.
How would
these
you?
are just words, and
Would that be similar to Ben Shapiro?
No. Ben Shapiro is pretty classic, like neoconservative, sort of a. I would say, in the ilk of all the people that we hate, like John Bolton's and like Pompeo's and
CarCampIt.
I don't know. Wait. What?
What?
I don't know Ben Shapiro like super well, except for just what I see. Kind of memed and stuff like that.
Right.
He's not quite a neocon, is he?
What I've seen of him, I didn't think he would be a neocon, but I'm also
here's
not.
The thing. I think he is more free trade than a Bill Kristol or an Irvin Kristol or a John Podderitz or a Norman Podderitz or whatever. But I followed the guy for a long time, and I wouldn't, he classifies himself as having libertarian views, and again, we talk about this on the podcast. I don't think that's a thing. I think there's one libertarian view, and it's the NAP. Everything after that is just similarity. Right. And he doesn't abide by the NAP, as much as I know.
He's very pro-war, as far as I know.
Very, very pro-war. And I don't believe paleoconservatives to be pro-war.
Pro-war, right, you're right.
I don't think that is.
You're right.
And again, like, these are just words. We'd really have to define the positions, but no, I don't think that Ben Shapiro and Steven Crowder are similar in stances on war. I think they're similar on stances of economics, probably, and social aspects. So, yes and no. But for the purposes of Steven Crowder, Steven is more the kind of person that we get upset by in this particular, like, for the purpose of this podcast. And one of the reasons why I say that is because at the specific, and you were watching it, Rolo, so you saw it. Mm-hmm. At the specific event that we're going to talk about, there was a "Don't Tread on Me" flag. There was a Gadsden flag, and I think that really well symbolizes Steven Crowder and his crowd, his group. No pun intended. Is the calling yourself a libertarian, having the flag, but at the same time, no, the military, all the police, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Right.
You know where I'm going with this?
Yeah.
We exchanged some words on it, Rolo. I mean,
yeah.
He considers himself probably a libertarian in a lot of ways. I don't at all. I definitely don't.
That's the most infuriating thing to me. I think I get more infuriated by quote-unquote conservatarians than I do neocons almost, just because they're trying to hijack our name.
To bite it. Yeah. Look, man, like I said, I don't have a problem if you think you have libertarian views, but the fact of the matter is, if you're not 100% by the NAP, I can't call you a libertarian, and frankly, you're not my friend 100% of the time. Now, you could have good views, and I can have good views that work together, but,
Yeah, so we're 8.5 minutes into this, and we'll kind of announce if you didn't read the name of the episode already. Like when I write these descriptions, I'm writing it like it's going to be a surprise when they listen to.
Yeah.
When they listen to it, then I realize like the exact topic is the title of it, so they should. But,
sorry for hijacking it there, but yeah, you can.
But we're giving our airing of libertarian grievances about other libertarians this episode. And we'll make that pretty loose because we're talking about Steven Crowder.
Right, and since there are so many libertarians out there, I think we need to get rid of a few.
Right. That's what we really need to do is whittle down numbers.
Well, the question is, were they libertarians in the first place?
Right. But that's
exactly.
Steven.
That's where we're going.
Like, I think all of us are in agreement here about like one thing. Steven Crowder, for example, is better than Barack Obama.
Well, sure, yeah.
Yeah.
One ideology probably better than the other as far as smaller government, right? I would say.
Yeah. Crowder is going to stumble his way into some decent opinions, whereas Barack Obama is.
The only reason why I say Barack Obama is because that's probably the exact antithesis.
Yeah.
But that's like saying I'm better than an infant at basketball because I'm really terrible at basketball.
What? Wait, what do you mean? Wait,
I'm
this isn't
struggling
the
for a foothold. Where are we?
surrealist meme
Like
podcast.
I'm shuffling through a script. Like,
You guys don't know what analogies are?
you literally had to explain the analogy right after giving it. Because I'm really terrible at basketball. Okay, hold on. You want to take another stab at that?
Nope.
Alright, then we're fucked.
All right, let's start this flame war. Roll those out. Flame war.
Oh, well.
All right, I'm just going to
feel
restart this episode, and we're going to talk about something completely different.
Oh, no.
Hello, and welcome to episode 84,000.
I feel like, I mean, at least I know, Roller, where you're at.
No, I don't. I am thoroughly lost.
Oh, you didn't? Oh, I'm just saying that it was a joke.
What's it?
Just saying that, like,
aware it was.
it's not really saying much to be like, well, he's better than Barack Obama. It's like,
Right.
well,
Yeah, exactly.
Gotcha. All right.
But I mean, sort of
Now I
the-
get it.
wait, did
I
you
mean,
guys
sort
think
of
that
a-
like
I
the
guess
infant
it's
was
like
going to
I
be?
had
Conservative
like
versus-
a flow chart of like babies and like a basketball court. Like Rolo's basket case picture. I'm like
I mean-
arranging them, trying to figure out. Like,
I feel like
get
we
it.
could definitely say that the paleo-conservative is better than the neoliberal.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
Certainly.
Yeah.
Yeah. So with that, those paleo-conservatives, a lot of them like to call themselves neoliberals. A lot of them like to call themselves libertarians. A lot of them do,
Right.
it seems. People like David Duke, for sure, are paleo-conservatives, but would call themselves libertarians.
Mhm.
And I think, and this might bring us into the first group of people we want to fuck around with.
Fuck around.
Saw a meme today.
Babies on a basketball court.
Saw a meme today that Anarchy Ball retweeted because he was angry about it, and I'm angry about it too. About the timeline of how to get to anarchy.
Oh yeah, I saw that.
I
And,
didn't
yeah, he
see
did.
I
And
didn't see it either.
apparently, the step right before anarchy. I didn't know this, but apparently, the step right before anarchy is the Confederacy.
Yeah.
Isn't that interesting?
Yeah.
Now, the Confederacy is probably the classic case of paleo-conservatism. I mean, it really is. And I don't know, man. Do we want to?
Well, isn't it like
what kind of
it's
person
like
would post that meme?
it's like you? Yeah, I'll try to find it. It's like all the way on the left, it's communism, and then was it like social democracy,
Socialism, yeah.
and then the United States, then fascism, monarchy, Confederacy, then anarchy.
Well,
Implying that
Are they
fascists-
referring
So-
Are they referring specifically to rebelling against a supposed
No, they're-
tyrant, even if
no,
it
they're
was
saying
misguided,
that-
maybe? Or
No, they're saying that these forms of government are better than the previous.
well, Bird, you're a U.S. history guy, right?
Yeah.
So I'm really not. I don't know a lot, but from what I understood about the Confederates, the CSA, weren't they almost kind of fascist? Didn't they kind of take control of all the business to help
I
the
don't
war
know.
effort?
I don't know if I would say that. I don't know if I would say that unless you're willing to say that Abraham Lincoln was a fascist too.
well, I mean, it could
I
be.
mean, sure,
No,
but I'm
no,
not.
and I don't
I'm
think-
asking. I'm just asking. I don't.
No, I don't think so. I don't know. I don't think I would call them. I don't think I would call them a fascist. I think I would call both of them really in the ilk of the paleo conservative
Okay.
or of a utilitarian liberal. I mean, at that time, really, that's the both of them resemble that. And you know me, I fucking hate utilitarianism in all its forms. I just think it's veiled communism. But
Right.
you know, it's just interesting to me that somebody could, you know, with a straight face go, yeah, the Confederacy is the step before anarchy. Like, dude, there's a lot of things you need to tackle before.
Yeah.
you
Let's
take that final
hijack
step.
the money, monopolize it,
Yeah.
devalue it,
Yeah,
and,
have slaves.
and also have slaves. Like, yeah.
Have slaves.
I don't know how anarchic
I don't know,
that
man.
is.
And I guess where we're going with this is there is a specific group of people who say that. There's a specific group of people in the libertarian movement.
But to
Great
play
face
devil's
with
advocate on that, is that are they saying that they would? Are they associating more states' rights and that sort of thing, even though that is not it's not.
Yeah, I
the point, right?
guess maybe the point is saying secession.
Yeah, I mean, isn't that
step.
what we're kind of getting at? Is more or less secession is okay,
But
sort of
here's
thing.
the thing: it's secession from one government to form another government that is probably equally as tyrannical.
Oh, absolutely. No. I'm not making.
You know what I mean?
Just the idea of seceding.
Just the idea of removing yourself from.
And hey,
society
man,
that used to
secession is
exist.
awesome. But if you're a voluntarist of any form, right? You're seceding from the government. You're not seceding to a different government, right? Isn't this?
Well, I mean, I think that there's a pretty legitimate string of or group of people in the movement that, like, I mean, you know, who is it? Michael Bolden with the 10th Amendment Center and stuff like that,
Right.
who are saying like,
yeah.
well, I'll use the state to fight itself. Essentially, I don't know. You know, I'm not here arguing how successful it'd be, but like arguing for states' rights, and then maybe a community, like a local municipality, to have more freedom over, you know, state control, and then and so on and so forth.
Here's the thing. I don't have a problem with directionalism. I don't have a problem at all with moving forward towards it. It's okay. I'm gonna say it because nobody said it yet. It's Hoppians. Okay,
Yeah.
I'll take the fire on it. It's not Hans Hermann Hoppe.
Right.
It's not Hans Hermann Hoppe. It's Hoppians.
It's the people that haven't really actually read Hoppe.
Yeah, exactly. It's the yellow snakes. And look, I don't want to bring hate to your guys' podcast. Come over to my podcast and hate on me because I can't stand.
No,
snakes. I can't stand them.
We've ripped on them. Like that was like
good.
That was like an entire year of my writing was me ripping
good.
on
I think they're the fucking scum
on
of
the
libertarian
bordertarians and the Walcucks. Like
Yeah,
that's all I
Slappy
did
the
for
other
a while.
day. I was texting Slappy, and Slappy said he was kind of turning around on the wall thing.
Yeah, I heard that too.
I think it could
Flame war.
He was thinking about building a fence at his house.
Podcast.
He was thinking about building
I mean-
a fence at his house, and he got really guilty because he's like, "Well, it's private property," and
Well, that's
therefore,
that's the classic argument, right? Is well, then get rid of the walls around your property. Like, okay, same thing. Sure.
I love that. Like, out of nowhere,
Right.
the term border, which has always been known as like assumed to be a political border, now suddenly means private property, and more so like
Any
open
border.
borders. So
Picture
like,
frames.
when you say the term open border, I get it. We want private borders, whatever.
Yes,
but
yeah.
but like it's always whenever I heard someone say open borders in a libertarian sense, I never once thought that meant like, oh, the government's going to import or have a program to bring people in, or that you're not allowed to dictate what your private property rules
right.
are. Because anything else, like when you say, well, let's have open markets, that only means free. That means free markets, not that the government's going to force you to buy something. That's insane.
That's a good way to put it. Yeah, I like that. Dude,
And
Can I just
because
say-
they can't argue on the actual topics.
Right.
You just get called a communist and
And can I say
No.
that if you call yourself a free marketeer, all right, fine, I guess.
All right, great podcast, guys.
Oh
Thanks for
man.
having us on.
No, look, man. If you call yourself a free marketeer, you cannot look at me in the same breath and say that you want protection on the borders. Because the fact of the matter is, that's economic protectionism. And if you want to call yourself a free marketeer, you can't have that in any form. I don't give a fuck if you think that Mexicans are coming into this country and taking your job that, first of all, you didn't want in the first place. But I don't care if you think that. In a free market, that's what happens. In a free market,
Exactly.
that's what happens. What you should be angry about and constantly saying is that you want to get rid of the minimum wage. There should be no talk of this wall bullshit. And I know that some of these Hoppians do talk about getting rid of the minimum wage. That's awesome. That's how it should be. But you can't tie that with, and we should build a wall too. They don't work in the same sense.
my
well, even
biggest-
Hop says that.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, it's kind of funny because they don't fucking read Hop.
I know.
Yeah. The biggest like quandary for me is watching a bunch of libertarians who, among other things, understand that the government is morally misguided and completely like terrible at doing stuff typically, and for all of the other things that they want to eliminate because the government does a terrible job in serving the customer, they think, oh yes, giving government control over this thing, it's going to be great. It's going to be perfect, and they're not going to use it in nefarious ways. Like, and they're going to actually build an effective wall like that. Like,
Right.
how could you be?
Let's
duped
build
into
the biggest
that?
open air prison around ourselves, and hopefully the warden
Yeah.
will decide he doesn't want it.
But that's the other thing is like there's no freaking way that the government's actually going to do it, right? I mean, like, I don't think. I mean, that'd be really, really difficult.
Wall? Yeah.
Well, it goes against everything, like all the principles behind, exactly what you're saying, all the principles behind libertarianism being against the state. The state can't solve the economic calculation problem. And then all of a sudden you just, pull the wheel or cut the wheel, and now you're saying, well, no, in this certain situation,
in this one scenario,
where it's
that may as well be military or police or welfare or
it has to be all of those things.
Again, I don't have a problem with directionalism at all, but directionalism is not building a wall. The wall wasn't there, so let's not build it.
Yeah.
Directionalism would be decreasing the minimum wage. It would be getting rid of the welfare state. You can't add in order to get rid of, and this is where either you decide, oh, you're right, we can't add to get rid of, or oh, I guess I'm a paleo-conservative.
Exactly.
Either way's fine, but be fucking honest.
Yep.
Because, like we said, I can agree with a paleo-conservative on a lot of things, and then we'll buck heads on certain topics, but don't fucking tell me that you're the same thing as me. Because I know you're not.
That is probably my biggest gripe with people, is when they explicitly go against the central ideas of libertarianism.
Yeah.
Instead of just saying, you know what, I don't agree with the libertarian ideas right there. They say, no, I'm the actual libertarian. You're a communist. Because that's what normally you get called.
What do you guys say to this? I want to get y'all's take on this. I'm just because I think it's an interesting concept. What would you say if and granted, this is a big hypothetical and we're off in just speculation land, but what if there were some kind of really radical, I don't know, call them a terrorist group that was like residing right on one of our borders, and like some libertarians were like, we should build a wall to keep those guys out. I mean, I know that it's not legitimate, and I don't favor it. But
well, I've actually heard someone who's like a real guy, Frank Gaffney's his name, thinks they are building, like the Muslim Brotherhood is building these terrorist cells in the United States right now.
Uh-huh.
I guess what I would say to that is, has two things. The first thing that I would say is it doesn't affect me. It's not my, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, right. No, I mean, there's always the individualist.
Now, if they were literally, if they were on my borders, like if they were hanging out in Hollis, they were hanging out in Hollis, Queens. I would probably.
I mean, you'd probably seek market solutions, but I think that there's a group of libertarians that and I'm trying to figure out how to phrase this, that are fairly good on domestic stuff, and they're just like, we want to have a libertarian society going on in here, and for that to happen, we've got to keep certain people out. Now, I think that their approach is completely bogus.
If you're talking about people who are violent, then
that's true.
But Hoppians, it's not just Hoppians. But
no,
Hoppians,
it's not. It's
Hoppians, and I divorced that term from Hop anyway. But it's Hoppians who want to keep out fucking guy who wants job. With the excuse that really he wants welfare, which provably is not the case.
Right.
Well,
there are studies that show that this is not the case.
Well, tying it back to the Crowder thing, that's where the guy who was arguing in favor of socialism with him it's funny I'm saying this, made a great point.
Oh, no, dude, you should say it, because that fucking kid was on fire, even if we disagree with him.
But because he said, like, he started off with saying, well, how do you feel about minimum wage? And Crowder goes, well, I'm against it. Blah, 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 gives the reasons for it, standard stuff, no problem.
Absolutely.
And then he says, like, well, but you think that we should have a strong, secured border to keep the wages up?
Ah, right,
exactly.
Yeah.
And he's like, well...
It's protectionism.
Yeah. So it's like, well, six of one, half dozen of the other.
Sure. Yeah, that is good.
You're trying to achieve the same end.
Yep.
Yeah, and it's I just hate the specific Hoppians who make this argument, because there are other Hoppians who won't. That's perfectly fine.
Sure.
But if you're making this argument that we both need to get rid of the minimum wage and increase the strength of the borders, I have something to tell you. You're just an economic protectionist.
Yeah.
I mean, you're no different from an economic nationalist. Sorry.
Well, it's because it has to be there. I mean, yeah, no, exactly, because they're implicit in that argument is the admission that the state needs to control it somehow.
Yeah.
That it's either or. Like you either control the border or the government has to regulate it another way.
Now, I guess since we're talking about problems that we have with libertarians, or these specific libertarians, it's a weird question, but like, are these people part of the movement?
I mean,
isn't that weird? Isn't that weird?
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, it's like for as pissed off as I almost always am, then they'll throw out a taxation as theft,
Yeah.
And even though they want to use taxation for a wall, I don't know, the heart may be in the right place. Yeah, it's a tough question. It's like we're not really at the point where we should be slimming this thing down, probably.
So I think
go ahead.
Go ahead, Seth.
I was going to say, I think they all have a place because I don't know. Yeah. I mean, you're younger than I am, but I didn't really get into this stuff till I was out of college, and I was pretty much a mainstream neocon. I didn't know that, but I was. And if an ANCAP came over to me and started talking, I probably would have told them to go to hell. Yeah. But there was little steps along the way that got me here. So, I think they all have their spot.
Yeah, I think it's important to distinguish between the people that are kind of moving in that direction, because I was one of the people, in my transition into libertarianism and anarchy to where I am now, the borders, not even the borders, but like the military and the police, those were like kind of the last few things to go for me.
Right.
So I think there's I think there's a difference between those type of people who are still kind of on that path.
Yeah.
And then the people who claim to be ANCAPs forever, and I used to be open borders, but now I realize that I hate I don't want to put.
Yeah, like it's a reactionary thing. Like,
right.
Well, here's a counter to that, I guess, because what did they do in Israel? How did they create Israel? Right. They had a bunch of people move there.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah. And look how that turned out. Now, of course,
also
that was
there
government sanctioned.
there was also an ethnic purge, wasn't there?
Later on.
But not originally. And there was problems because you had these European Jews moving to this part of the world where, in Mance's podcast, I'm going to forget the terms, so forgive me. But there were Jews already living there, and they were getting along just fine, and they were culturally Middle Eastern. They dressed similarly.
Diaspora? Is that?
Maybe.
Well, it would be a diaspora, because a diaspora is just a group of people who don't live in the place that they come from.
Right. And you had all these Europeans going there who had a totally different culture. They didn't know how to.
That's what always cracks me up about Netanyahu. And Netanyahu's last name is Polish. It's not Netanyahu. He changed it.
Really? I didn't know that.
That's what cracks me up about it. It's like
great.
It is. It's like if we had a president in this country whose name was like Norman Barashovsky, but he was actually
changed it to Smith.
Yeah, right.
Isn't that Trump? Isn't his?
Oh yeah, Trump or whatever.
Can we not? Can we not do Trump? Yeah, man.
Yeah, just like as soon as he comes into consciousness, glancing at the birth certificate, just let's.
Yeah, but probably. I mean, you're right. That's exactly it. And there's problems there too.
But even go ahead. But even to counter that counterpoint, I mean, if you look at the history of any sort of migration hub, it's the places that have the problems for the most that I'm aware of are the ones where the government tries to manage the settlements. Yeah. Any time where you have cities where it's just kind of like, all right, well, these people happen to become moving in from this country for whatever reason, we're just kind of going to let them do their own thing. Right. It's natural for people to have problems with people that are different from them, who have a different culture, speak different languages, look differently from them. But as long as the state doesn't try to move in and correct all of that and rescue them and cause all the problems, they do their own thing, and then like an integration happens that is peaceful and ends up benefiting everyone. So I say this, give this reference all the time.
We've talked about this before, Rob.
Yeah, migrants.
Right? Like if you look at Philadelphia or New York City or any of these Northeast cities, there's a Germantown section, a Chinatown, the Italians settled in a place, and the Irish and the Polish. They're all over the city, and they all kind of got together fine. Maybe there was little issues when they first moved, but nothing major, nothing serious, and now they all have the same culture. Right. So, I mean, but when you're forcing another culture on people, then you can have some serious problems and resentment.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, that's any, like, you look at Paris now too with the Muslim issues there. I mean, it's not. They forced them in ghettos.
Yeah.
Right.
And I know that it was on Mance's podcast talking to I forget his name, the Scottish guy.
Yeah, I know.
Oh, yeah. I know who you're talking. I like that guy.
He's good, but he kind of gave a little bit of a But I forget what it was. But he was talking about, like,
I think I just like his accent.
Yeah, I do too. But he said, like, oh, there's no policy for integrating these people in, and then he mentions, like, these government policies. And it's like, but that's not just a natural move. Like, the state is acting a certain way. It's doing what it thinks is best to do stuff. Because I don't necessarily think that it's always this, like, evil, terrible, nefarious plot. I think they're just incompetent, and it's the state.
Well, that's exactly what I think about Israel. It was a different time, and they won World War I, and they had the mandate for Palestine, and they were going to set it up the way they wanted because they thought it would work. Mm-hmm. I don't think they thought they were going to destabilize the region for the foreseeable future.
I think there are certainly some people now whose direct intention is to keep the area unstable.
Oh, for now, no doubt.
Certainly, yeah. I mean, that's what the Afghanistan war was.
Of course.
Yeah, and you agree. I mean,
no, absolutely. But I'm talking about it at the time of the mandate for Palestine. Now, I could be wrong. I'm not an expert in this area, but it would not shock me if they thought they were they thought they could just move the chess pieces around however they wanted, and that would work because that was imperialism, and that's kind of what they did.
Yeah.
But nowadays, no, I totally agree.
Yeah, no, and maybe we're drifting from libertarianism, but that is sort of prevailing theme, is that there are some groups of people who want to immigrate over others. And you find this in libertarianism, and I think it's everything but, because it just rejects individualism as a whole. And there are groups of people who will call themselves libertarian. I can think of a few who I don't want to call out because their fan bases are so large and voracious that if they found out, we would all die. Particular people who host podcasts, who I can name, who have bald heads, who would use the IQ argument, an argument which is based not at all in individualism and hardly in fact either, and relies entirely on the state to enforce it. And it's interesting how someone could call themselves an anarchist when they fall into that, especially when they want the state to, enforce it. I think that's another problem that I have with, should we call them Hoppians or really just libertarians who follow this ideal?
Yeah, I mean, even if the IQ argument was true, so what?
Right.
Yeah, right.
Because it takes away the individual.
Well, no, I guess, what their argument is? I see, and this goes back to Hoppians, I see a lot of people say we can't have low IQ people in this country because low IQ people often collectivize and prefer socialism, which I laugh at because where's the highest IQ? We can find some in Northern Europe. Where's the other highest IQs? We can find some really high IQs in India. What are those countries?
Well, are there any PhDs in the United States teaching in universities who might be a little socialist?
Right,
right, exactly.
Well, the whole ironic thing, because I've been reading this book, and I think I've mentioned it a few times. It's really As We Go Marching by John Flynn.
Yeah.
About how fascism started in Italy and then Germany and then the U.S. And we all like to think that fascism is kind of a more recent thing in the U.S. But the early progressives, those guys were the fascists. And I'm reading
this book as well. That's exactly the same premise.
And I'm reading some of this stuff, and well, first of all, it's ironic that these anti-progressive people are, their hero should be the people they hate, the early 20th century progressives. But it's the same exact arguments. Like, I'm reading this Albert Beveridge. I'm actually pulling his speech he gave to Congress from the congressional records. I'm going to publish it on the site because I think it's extremely worthwhile to read. Talking about the Philippines and U.S. imperialism there. And, that was not about natural rights. It was we want their resources, we want the ability to trade there, and oh, by the way, those people are barbarians and incapable of self-government. And so we need white people to go over there and be the rulers for them. Otherwise, they're going to need a dictator.
Right. So
It's like
our good friends. I was going to say our good friend Thaddeus Russell.
I was about to say that. Yep.
Yeah, he's writing a book, and he talks in interviews. He's talking about this because he's talking about the history of U.S. foreign policy, and he says the Third Reich thought they would be allies with the United States because FDR's New Deal was the Nazi government.
Right.
Yeah,
Oh, absolutely.
That's a good
Hitler
point.
cites the early progressives in the United States as a framework for his government. He cites them directly.
But also just
I mean, there are letters, and I can't remember the name of the American progressive who exchanged them with Hitler. There are letters between Hitler and one of the progressive leaders of the time, and where Hitler's like, "Man, I love what you do. I love these ideas that you come up with. People should really form a government around this stuff." I mean, and the point is, when Thad came on your show and you guys were arguing back and forth about the non-aggression principle, and we were talking about his suggestion that there was an obligation to defend the truth, right? Yeah, certainly, the IQ argument, as it has borne out in history, suggests that there's an obligation to defend it. You know what I mean? There's an obligation to, if you believe that low IQ brings harm, well, that clearly then means that you need to lord over low IQ.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I mean, again, it's not a direct obligation, but how has it borne out in history?
Well, it's just, it's
exactly
all,
like that.
I mean, I guess you can make anything into a consequentialist argument.
Oh, well, you certainly can, but at least for the purposes of when we're talking objective principles here, people who don't follow strictly the objective principle, they're going to fall into that.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
And again, I mean, maybe we could get off Hopkins now because they're an easy target, but yeah, man, what a shame. What
Get to the chopper.
Yeah, I love helicopter jokes, dude. I really do, but
Yeah.
there are legitimately people who think that Pinochet is an idol, which is
Right.
fucking bizarre to me.
Yeah, it's...
Yeah, I when those helicopter memes started, I thought they were kind of funny, and then like people started getting real serious with it.
Yeah. It's one of those
Kind of
things.
weird.
It's one of those things where like, that's funny, man, you play too much. Like, it's
Yeah.
real. It became real. It was a joke that memed itself into reality.
I don't know why that tickled me.
That one got him.
Joke that memed itself into reality.
Who's
That sounds like my entire Twitter profile.
Who's the other group of people that we could take a crap on? Because I'm loving it.
Crap on.
how about the people who don't have tractors?
Yeah. Oh, there it is. Oh, dude, the way you slipped the tractor reference into our podcast, I'm disgusted with you.
I don't even remember what it was.
Which brings us to the second half of this podcast, shitting on Rollo.
Yeah, Rollo is the other half of the problem with the libertarian movement.
Yeah.
Probably. But I can also mute you. And it's my website,
That's true.
It's true.
That's
That is
true.
true.
so property rights.
To the helicopter.
The
Boom.
helicopter for us.
Boom, roasted.
I've been roasted.
I like wood chipper more. I'll tell you that. Wood chipper's a good one.
Yeah.
Yeah, DJ's a big fan of that one.
I like that one a lot. All right, who's the other group of people? Because there's
Wait, who else? How about we talk about Car? Because
I've been managing to point fingers like enough that nobody has been pointing them back at me, but now it looks like my time has come.
I was gonna say
the non-aggression principle.
yeah.
We were talking about before we went on.
Oh, he's a nap thumper.
Go into that or no?
I'm a nap thumper. A nap thumper.
I was gonna suggest a group of people who are way worse than that, but
Yeah.
No, let's
Actually-
do that because
No. I got to defend myself. Roll? Give me an elevator pitch for why you think the nap is non-axiomatic.
Because I have a higher IQ than you.
Yeah, right. Okay.
Oh, here we
No,
go.
it's okay. So,
What's going on in the helicopter?
Fires up the helicopter in the background.
no, I think there's certain lifeboat situations that can be imagined where it would not be correct to apply the nap there. in very limited circumstances.
I get. Okay, I just wanted to make sure that was what you were going to get to, and there wasn't something.
No, I just think we're
still waiting for this argument with Jeremiah Harding.
I know. It's so I wrote.
Do you think there's anything to the fact that you would like? I kind of view it, if you want to stick on your basketball reference, and I'll try to improve it, which shouldn't be too difficult. Is that occasionally you need to take the foul, right? Like at the end of the game, fouling is technically against the rules, right? But in certain situations, you just kind of have to foul to get another shot at the hoop, right?
Sure.
You know, and that's kind of how I view the nap, and whether you were right or wrong to take the foul would be determined in some sort of court or some sort of arbitration.
Right. And I think where people get a little bit confused about what my position or argument is on it is that it's still I'm not saying that suddenly stealing is not a violation of the nap anymore. It is always a violation.
It is a violation, right.
It is always a violation, but it can be ethical to do it. Yeah, I propose that there is or I hypothesize, and I can't prove it right now, but that there is a greater principle in play that determines what is, the truth, and that's what we're searching for. Is the truth.
Yeah, right. Yeah, not even necessarily because it is morally wrong to steal. I mean, I guess we would all take that position.
It's like saying, all right, let's talk just like homicide.
Right.
We will generally say that homicide's wrong, except sometimes you're justified in killing someone else.
Yeah, right, exactly. But I don't think.
But we distinguish it between murder, and it's the same kind of principle.
Yeah.
Or same kind of idea.
Yeah, I get you. And especially there's the matter of restitution, right? There's the matter of, well, if you have the NAP, then you need to have something that enforces it. And the idea would be restitution. So, for example, somebody steals an apple because they're hungry. I mean, this is classic, like, Les Miserables sort of moral situation. Somebody steals.
You hoity-toity New Yorker.
I'm not gonna lie. I've seen it.
I played in the pit band for it.
So, I mean, what is that situation where...
In my old high school.
He was singing.
He was the one stealing the apple, and that's where we're getting to it.
You steal the apple. Is it a violation? Absolutely. It's always a violation. Right. But the restitution that is expected between a man who is hungry who steals is different from a man who is greedy and steals. And I guess maybe that's where you're going with it, is the reaction to the NAP certainly should not be an objective reaction. Stealing should not always equal cut your left arm off.
Like, what happens after the fact? I mean, I don't know that it really matters for the initial action, right?
Right, but even the person stealing has to steal or they will die. They have to prioritize themselves, and I don't know personally if I can go, yeah, we should punish them. I mean, like, I would rather pay for the apple. I think that's the point,
that they're taking the foul, and it will be deliberated by their peers.
The guy with the apple needs to be paid back. He lost an apple, but at the same time, that guy with the apple might go, God, he really is starving.
Yeah,
you know what? Why don't you do this for me, and maybe we could work something out here instead of like a you must be punished for stealing this. Like, where's the human? Like,
right?
We're libertarians. We have to be human. Well, like, it's a requirement.
It's like if you were hungry and starving and had to choose between, and there two people had an apple, and you were either going to steal from the guy with 1 million apples or the guy who only had an apple to eat.
Yes, exactly.
Then you should pick the guy with 1 million apples.
Are we going to suggest that somebody should starve themselves to death instead of violate the NAP? Like, I'm not.
Maybe Walcott.
Yeah, maybe Walcott. Yeah.
Well, Rollo, would you say in these lifeboat scenarios, but I don't even think I think you can look at everyday scenarios.
Yeah.
Absolutely. There's everyday.
Do you think it's unethical to violate the NAP in those situations, or do you think it's perfectly ethical?
Well, what's your definition of ethical?
I mean,
like universal truth, right and wrong.
Maybe
I don't know. Ethics. I mean, as far as I know, the definition of ethics is that which informs morality. So, I mean, is that what you're asking? Whether or not it is
sure,
wrong?
right? And that's kind of where Michael Humer goes with it, is he says we have an ethical intuition.
Right.
Right. I'm tempted to agree with Thaddeus that I'm not convinced that we should be using right and wrong to describe these things. I think there's other words to use and other ways to go about it.
Oh, I agree. Like, yeah, I'm not convinced. Like, that's the thing. We were kind of talking about it, I think, afterwards, or maybe I was just talking to Slappy offline. But, I don't, like, we call them rights, and I think it's just kind of shorthand for explaining the best way. I don't even know how to put words to it.
Yeah. But,
yeah, because they're not. I mean, a right is something that's immutable. It cannot be, if you have a right to something, then under no circumstances may it be taken away. But, at the same time, I'm saying that, well, there are certain situations where stealing's okay. So
I think that's why we say that the
not okay.
is exactly that principle.
Maybe not. I shouldn't have said stealing's okay, but it would be just.
It's understandable.
Right, justified. Yeah, which may be splitting hairs, but
Well, because that then brings you into the conversation of what is justice, and that's not a conversation that libertarians have often. They just go, "Well, justice is the NAP." Right. Doesn't answer the question. Justice is different from ethics. I mean,
yeah, we're kind of assuming the playing field we're on, which may or may not be the correct one. Which is, it gets into like, all right, well, it's, I made the reference to Newtonian versus quantum physics before, but that's kind of what we're probably dealing with, is that you reach a point where the system that we're working in, or I think it's clear that that's what we're dealing with. You reach a point where the system that we're trying to work within is incapable of explaining it.
Right.
So we need to figure out something else. What is it? I mean, that's.
Yeah. Okay. I see what you're saying. So you're saying that we found something that's pretty damn good, but there may be something further as we progress through.
Sure. Yeah, because I mean, I think if
what would the postmodernists say to that? Because like, what would they say? What do you mean good?
Yeah. A good way to affect the progress and well-being of society.
I think the important thing to say by that is when we say good, we mean the progress of our society. Those who want to be involved in it, which is, might sound redundant.
Sure.
Like, if it's good for a society, then it's good for your society. But just to classify it, like, not everyone would be happy with the NAP. I mean, like, for example, that kid who was trashing the shit out of Crowder was not happy with the NAP. I mean, he's straight up said violence is necessary. So, for example, that would not make him happy. That wouldn't make him better, even though I personally think it would, and he's just being stubborn, but
sure.
Says it wouldn't.
Oh, yeah, and he's free. There was someone on Twitter recently, I think it was some comedian who was like, oh, tell a libertarian that maybe I want to voluntarily live within a big government. Ha ha ha. Well, I think it was like a big checkmate thing. It's like, well, fine. Let's go ahead. No one's stopping.
One thing that is objective is voluntarism to other people. That seems objective to me.
Yeah.
And if you want people to choose the happiest mode for them, let them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's kind of why I'm a thin libertarian is that all I know is let's try not to steal and hurt each other. How to live the good life.
Yeah, right. That's not my business.
That's part of the market's going to help figure that out because the people and that's what actually like what Hoppe was saying in God the Democracy That Fails is that people who live their lives well and practice good habits and live a noble good life because those people tend to be the more productive ones. So people will see that they have fulfilling, wealthy lives and want to copy that.
Yeah, I never had a problem with Hoppe suggesting that was the best way.
Right.
I never felt like Hoppe was prescribing it to all man.
Oh yeah, I was not. Yeah, I wasn't suggesting that.
No, not you. But there are people like his ilk would suggest that.
Right. They'll turn around and say, "Well, we need to enforce that way of life." It's like that's not what he's saying. It's like the Hoppians that call themselves Hoppian monarchists.
Yeah, man,
dude,
I
just
saw
be a
somebody with
monarchist.
I saw somebody with an anarcho-monarchist.
Yeah, it's like, you idiot. Like, I don't know if you read the Democracy That Fails or not. He's not saying that monarchy is, and I think he says it multiple times. He's like, I'm just comparing democracy and monarchy.
In this case, it more mimics a private government. He's not saying it's better.
Not saying that, oh, therefore the goal should be monarchy. No, he said the goal should be no government.
You cannot have anarcho-monarchy because the idea of a monarchy is to suggest that the monarch has absolute power over you. And the word anarchy comes from the Greek anarchos, which is no archons, which is no rulers.
Right, which
you cannot have a ruler who does not rule.
I'm a no ruler, one ruler kind of guy. That's just how I feel.
Yeah. Well, it's funny because whenever you think of the word ruler, you think of a guy sitting on a throne with a crown on his head.
Yeah.
I thought you were going to say something about like measuring or drawing a straight line.
Yeah, that would be customary for me.
Yeah, that's what. Yeah.
You're friggin' engineers. Always with your numbers and your measurements. Yeah, dude, anarcho-monarchist has to go in the wood chipper.
Yeah.
I've changed my opinion, guys. That's going in the helicopter. I've changed my opinion.
Flame war.
Yeah, dude. Some people who call themselves libertarians really fucking puzzle me sometimes because it's a weird term. Like, you can't do it with Democrat. You can't do it with Republican. But for some reason, people think that with libertarian, you could just say whatever kind of shit you want, and then all of a sudden, I could be a libertarian.
Well, would you consider Gary Johnson a libertarian?
Absolutely. I absolutely would. I just think he's a fucking retard at the same time. I absolutely would consider him a part of the liberty movement, but he is on the short bus of it.
Did you define libertarian as non-aggression principle?
I guess you're right. I might have to reconsider it.
Because the non-aggression principle goes over Gary Johnson's head, which I recorded him saying that at the Pennsylvania Libertarian presidential debate.
I may have to roll it back right on this podcast and say, no, now I don't.
And you can go on my McFlugel YouTube page and look that video up. I couldn't believe I got that. Oh, I couldn't believe it. I went to the debate. There's some friends that were running.
Wait, what did you have, like a media medallion and like a old time where you were wearing like 1920s reporter gear?
He's got a newsboy hat.
I was the beat reporter on the scene.
Gary.
Yeah.
Here's the thing. For a second.
Here's the thing. Is Gary Johnson somebody who wants to shrink the government net? Yes.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Is he a libertarian? I'll roll it back. I'll say no. But with that, I would like a word to describe those people.
Right, because
libertarian. What do we want to call them?
I mean,
small government conservative, because he's not even a conservative.
But you'd agree he's better than Trump or Hillary or anything.
Sure, yeah,
I would take Gary Johnson over Donald Trump 99% of the time, and the other 1% is because I love Donald Trump's comedy.
I think that Gary Johnson's probably would be. I would take him, at least from the words that he said, over any U.S. president probably of all time.
Yeah, over any other U.S. president, probably, maybe, absolutely, yes.
So what age of a child would Gary Johnson be on a basketball court against me?
Oh, my God.
Infinite, as we've learned before.
The metaphor, I want you to just immediately explain what the metaphor is. Because Gary Johnson's a proto-libertarian, and
I know. I don't have a problem admitting when when I say stupid shit. I'm gonna have to take back what I just said about Gary Johnson. Not a libertarian. Liberty court over. Not a libertarian.
I'll be the judge.
Not a libertarian. Still a retard. I don't take that away.
I think he's a libertarian, but he's just a retard.
Libertarian. Yes, libertarian.
So I want to steer this at Bird to gripe. I have to air a grievance about you.
Oh yes.
And it was before
Flame War.
When we were on your show last week, before we started recording. You have never seen a Rocky movie.
Oh my God, that was the most insane thing I've ever heard. It blew my mind.
Can I tell you something?
No. Go ahead.
Okay. I watched Rocky 1 literally right after that.
Redemption! redemption. Sweet redemption.
That was it. That's all it
The
took.
gang's back together.
Dude, I watched Rocky 1 and I was watching clips of Rocky 4. I think I'm gonna fucking love Rocky 4. And I didn't realize that Rocky 3 has Hulk Hogan in it.
And
Thunderlips?
Yeah.
Thunderlips. Yeah,
And-
I didn't realize that.
And
You know
Mr.
what?
T.
Because you guys all shamed me while we were talking about that, and I was like, you know what, maybe these guys have a point. I mean, they're from Philly, it's probably close to home, and Carr's just a shill, so he'll say whatever goes.
Sure.
You see? Yeah, just like he picked the Eagles to beat the Vikings. We asked him that when he was on our podcast last time.
But to be fair, that was before the Friends Against Government podcast started.
Yeah.
So I think
That's true.
I'm still clean, baby.
So
Yeah, all right,
Slappy, there you go. I
it was
mean,
a good movie.
you're
The first
saying-
one was really good.
you're saying
That's done.
I actually, speaking of Stallone stuff, I watched First Blood this weekend.
Amazing,
Drew
amazing.
First Blood.
You've never seen it before?
I've seen parts of it before,
Oh, amazing.
never
film.
straight through.
Amazingly schlocky.
Oh, it's excellent.
That's excellent.
Do you know what's another great Stallone movie?
What?
Over the Top.
I don't think I've seen that.
I haven't seen that either. What is that?
Oh, he's a trucker,
Oh man.
and he's
I
got
love the poster.
he's
The
got
poster's classic 80s.
he's got a like an estranged son that's like goes to this like military school, so he's just like uppity like nerdy kid that you just want to smack in the face. And
Sure.
so he like the mother dies, so he's got to take care of him. And
Oh my god, I'm looking at the description.
in order to like somehow win the kid, because like the grandfather's trying to steal him, he's got to make money, so he enters an arm wrestling competition in Las Vegas.
Oh my lord. I gotta see that.
And there's the poster is just him arm wrestling this giant bald man with a goatee.
So the reason he agreed to do the movie apparently was because he thought no one would ever see it.
That's a classic reason why they all do it.
And it became
You
like
guys
a
want to know the worst movie I've ever seen in my life?
go for it.
The
All right,
Notebook.
so this was maybe what?
Notebook.
The Notebook.
The Notebook. No, that was a great one. This was like
You're kicked off the podcast.
playing. This is like maybe 6 months ago, and I was looking for. So it was like a Friday night maybe, and I was looking for. I was on some organic performance enhancers, I'll say, and so
Bath salts for anyone who didn't pick that up.
yeah, I'm looking for They Live, that like cult classic.
Yes.
Yeah.
And because I haven't seen that. You want to know about an embarrassing admission? I have not seen that movie.
I haven't
Yeah.
either. There's a lot of movies I haven't seen.
Yeah,
All the John Carpenter movies. I mean, John Carpenter is one of my favorite directors, man. He makes such a good fucking movie.
yeah. At any rate, I need to see that. But so it wasn't on Amazon Prime. What was on Amazon Prime that came up as a suggested movie, I guess because they share a word, was this movie called Come to Live, C-U-M.
Come to
Why?
Live.
Yes. And
What is that?
I still cannot figure out if it's a really, really shitty porno or a shitty movie that's just really erotic or like attempted to be very erotic. Anybody that is listening to this, you got to go watch that movie and weigh in on it because I can't figure it out. It is the worst movie I've ever seen in my life. Hands down, I couldn't look away. It was a train wreck. It was like I
Let's
had to
do a
watch
review of it.
Let's do it. It's
do a
dude,
review of it.
it is out. It's on Amazon Prime right now. If anybody's got Amazon Prime Video, it is. It looks like it was created on a $4 budget in 1994.
Nice.
Dude, the summary on IMDb, this is one of the sentences. They want to have sex, but have no condom.
Yes. So there's no context to the movie, right? It just starts out, and there's this dude with like a mullet and like a Metallica shirt, like in a ski chalet condo thing, and some chick just stumbles in with her ski gear, and then it's about them trying to have sex for 2 hours, or seemingly an infinite period of time. Like you just want to kill yourself most of the time, and I don't even remember if they end up doing it, but they can't find a condom. That's the movie.
Nice.
Discuss.
I'll do a Fadcast review of it. I'll straight up do a Fadcast review of that movie.
It's outrageous. I can't believe that it
Or
exists.
maybe we could do like a side podcast we do once every month or so, where we just go for a while and review a bad movie. We could call it like Fag Screens.
So, do you know what movie you guys have to see? And it's historical, so it actually has some relevance to this. It's called Bubba Hotep.
I feel like I've heard of that.
So
what is
it's
It's
okay.
live,
It's set in a.
Every time you say one of these names, I look up the poster.
It's
Who's that?
it's set in a nursing home where there's these two main characters, and one's an Elvis impersonator, but it's actually the real Elvis because he decided when he was younger, in his younger days, he decided he really didn't want to do the Elvis thing anymore. So he told his manager he wanted to trade places with an Elvis impersonator and not tell anyone.
Oh.
So when he did the interview and they left, they actually changed places, but he came out and told his manager, like, oh, man, I didn't like that guy. But they actually did change. And then the other guy is a black man that is John F. Kennedy that they needed to get, they did the whole conspiracy to get him out of the public eye for whatever reason. So they turned him into a black man. So these two.
So wait. So this is a documentary, right?
Of course, it's true.
Yeah.
So these two guys find themselves in a nursing home together, and there's this like Egyptian zombie mummy thing that sucks people's souls out of their butts, and
Wait, what?
and so they fight
this
him.
movie? Did
Yes.
we direct this? And I don't remember.
And the fight scene at the end of the movie is the greatest because they're like chasing him around in motorized wheelchairs.
Whoa. In the nursing home?
He couldn't even finish it.
It's so good.
God.
I gotta see that. But you guys, you gotta promise me to watch that stupid Amazon Prime video.
I'm telling you, Car, and everyone listening, we will have a review of that movie. I guarantee it. We will do it.
I really need to break it down with some people because I'm not sure what I watched.
We'll have a really heavily edited podcast where we play clips from the movie and then talk about them. I have no problem with this. No.
Oh, that sounds like a great idea.
So you know what this reminds me of? Do you know that the meme of the like the pure libertarian versus the Libertarian Party thing?
Oh
Yeah.
yes, I was participating heavily in
Oh,
that.
that was the greatest thing in the world. I'm thinking about when Mance Rader did his podcast about great TV shows and movies that he likes.
Yeah.
That's what this is right now.
Yeah.
His is like the good like polished thing.
Anger.
Well, no. I'm talking about the
hating
reviewing movies and stuff. Like when he did his podcast episode about review, like he talked about TV shows that he really liked, and did like a really good job. Picked like really good TV shows. I'm watching The Americans now, and it's an excellent
I'm about to start
show.
Watching it. Yeah.
And so he did that, and then we're like bringing up the most weirdest, worst, obscure movies.
Oh, dude, I could hit you with some fucking weird movies.
I haven't even begun to get into
Yeah.
my weird, obscure movies.
Yeah, I haven't even seen the mainstream movies, so I'm way out of it.
That felt cathartic. We had this was good. This
Yes.
felt like shit on a Hoppians. We didn't even get to talk about the other subject that we wanted to talk about because we decided to shit on Carr instead, which I welcome every time.
Yeah, probably better off.
Maybe we'll tease that for the next episode.
Yeah.
It could be the Rollo and Bird show, and then
Just shitting on Slappy and
Carr and Slappy you guys can take the fat cast over.
Yeah, it's probably better. Probably better off for just
swapping wives or whatever.
We'll do something weird for the next
no.
one.
I mean, this is like the episode where they had Family Matters on Full House.
Oh yeah, exactly.
Nice
it.
reference too.
Who's who? Who gets to be?
Mags and Friends. This one could be called.
Who's Urkel? I guess. Well, I'll be Steve Urkel. Slappy's Carl Winslow. And
wait, do we all have to be? We all have to be people from Family Matters.
No,
Carl
you
Winslow
guys
was a
are
cop, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you guys are the ones.
Carl Winslow
It's either that. You're either Carl Winslow or you're Laura Winslow, Slappy.
Dude, no fucking problem. I'm John Stamos. No problem.
Okay.
Oh, nice.
And Carr is Michelle.
I'm a family car.
Family car. There you go.
I'll be Jesse Katsopoulos. Isn't that his name?
Yes, that's his name.
And Carr's Michelle Tanner.
Ooh.
Okay.
There you go.
Also,
All right,
I was
so,
thinking. Sorry.
Well, go
Also,
ahead now. Let's hear your joke. I know you had a good one.
no, I was thinking about the episode we had with you guys last week and about like the road sleeper, and I
can hear his shit-eating grin. I can actually hear it in his voice.
I do want to. There's two things that came from that. The road sleeper. I do want to write a choose your own adventure story about the road sleeper. And then also I want to have a spin-off animated series where it's the four.
I'm out for all of this, by the way. Please continue, but I'm out. I'm looking at my phone. I'm taking around my phone right now.
It's the four of us, but it's Scooby-Doo. And exactly. And every episode, it's about like a zombie starts going after us, and then we call the police, and the zombie just like disappears, and the police don't find him. And then it got me thinking. I can't figure out the Ken doll looking one's name.
What?
The character.
What?
Was it
Where
Fred?
are you talking about?
In Scooby-Doo, what was his name?
Oh, Fred.
It is
Fred,
Fred. Okay, it took me forever, and I couldn't.
It's like, isn't it like Fred Flintstone or something? Oh no, it's not
Fred.
He was in the
The
Flintstones.
ultimate crossover series. The Flintstones. You remember when the
Was that
Flintstones
my
won that
was
guy
that my
in the
biggest goof of
amusement park?
2018?
Who's the character from Scooby-Doo? I think it's Fred. Yeah, Fred Flintstone.
Yeah, that sounds right. Yeah, that's right.
Bro, Fred. Flintstone.
Zombies.
Oh
Okay.
my god.
All right. Well, hey, we're running out of time here, aren't we?
Yeah.
I mean, we can
just
keep
wanted to
going
say
if you want.
before that-
But
I wish we had run out of time like 5 minutes earlier.
Once we started giving
Once
Obscure
Rollo-
Amazon
Once Rollo took the wheel
blowing
there,
out people's
I wish
ears.
that it had just ended.
Oh my god, my laugh is really gonna blow out people's ears. I just wanted to say on that with Rolo's dud over there. It reminded me of probably one of my second favorite moment on the podcast. My first favorite moment is when you say you have a lot of boys to drive.
Yeah,
It will always be my favorite. My second favorite moment on the podcast, Car and I were texting one another, is when you go, I thought it was a pretty good story, and Car goes, yeah. What do you say, Car?
I think it was like, yeah, it was all right.
Yeah, that's great.
And then because I was editing the audio, only I can really hear it. You can't really hear it in the actual podcast, but I was editing the audio, and I after he goes, yeah, it was all right. I just hear Rolla go in the saddest possible voice. He goes, oh, okay. He was genuinely hurt.
I was just casually like eating a bag of Doritos and just shitting on Rollo.
That's why there's a rivalry.
That's why
Oh,
I like it.
Can you make a montage of that episode, like a greatest hits of that episode?
I have bloopers and shit saved. It will definitely be greatest hits from the Fadcast soon, 100%.
Okay, good.
Yeah, we got to have that.
All right. So speaking of that, you guys want to plug stuff you're doing?
Yeah, Car, you hit the plugs. I'm gonna eat it. I'm gonna get my own bag of Doritos.
Yeah, I mean, give us a follow. At CarCampIt is me. At birdarchist is Bird. I don't know. Just swing by, listen to the Friends Against Government podcast. We're strengthening the Large Government Brings Tears community, and just trying to have a little fun over there and blow off some steam. So I think that's
Listen
really
to
all
the
we got
episode
going on
with
right
these guys, everyone. Really, listen to the episode with your favorite libertarian podcast hosts.
now. Yeah, it's such a good episode.
Yeah, that I'll have all that linked on the show notes page, mcflugel.com/86. And you'll be able to find stuff to do all the stuff to like and follow Slappy and I. And also buy stuff from Liberty Mugs.
Liberty Mugs.
I like how at the beginning you prefaced the episode with, "When we'll talk about that later."
And we did.
That
We're
was you talking about it. That was you talking about it.
Well, I was waiting for you guys to
Yeah,
drop the
stuff.
bomb of like just start hooting and hollering and making me laugh. So I was just trying to run out of that intro as fast
Carter,
as I
you got
could.
your glue mug, and I'm about to put my order in because my paycheck just came in. So
Oh, yeah, dude.
I am happy.
I was parading that in front of the camera today when Bird and I were recording our earlier episode
Nice.
and just berating him mercilessly about not having one.
Do you know who also doesn't have a mug?
Who's that?
Oh, he's quiet.
Oh, Slappy?
That's true. That's true.
Oh, I see why you didn't pipe up there.
This is funny, like
Slappy was
really
hoping
funny.
it just would fly right by.
Yeah.
He just
because we
kept his
ended our
head low.
episode. of the Fadcast with you guys, we ended our episode by shitting on people who didn't have Liberty mugs, and now we're doing the exact same thing. But here.
And there's traitors amongst us.
I guess we deserve it.
We're probably going to continue to do that.
We'll get on there. Wewe'll buy one this week.
Yeah, so,
Yes.
yeah. I probably shouldn't bring that up. Yeah, no. Let's just end it.
Jesus Christ.
That's how we need to end every crossover. Let's just.
Fuck it. All right, guys. All
Why?
right, guys,
Yeah,
bye.
it's I don't know. They could be
Do
taken
we have a
care
free
of.
market success story?
Oh,
or
we got to do that. Yeah, we do. We do.
Well, we do. Oh, yeah, we do. I don't know anything about it though, but I guess I could start. Found out today that and someone posted it in our Twitter group chat. At one Marcella, right? Is that her name? Yeah, at one Marcella posted in our group chat today. Apparently, from what I see, there's a woman who, and I had my article up before, but I don't now. God, I'm on the spot. Oh, I'm nervous. CNBC posted an article about this woman, Samantha Hess, who took $500 to buy a business license, and she formed the company Cuddle Up to Me. And what this is Samantha Hess has decided that for the cost of $80 an hour, and for between 90 minutes and 3 hours on average, she will cuddle you. Isn't that amazing? Is that cool?
Yeah, it was
Is that
alright.
a free market success? All right, listen.
You're not
That's my free
invited.
market
She
success
found
story.
she found a way to fill a need, right?
You're
Found a way to fill a need. And I'll tell you what, beyond that, I think we can turn this into our own free market success story. We can start offering faggy cuddles. We can start cuddling people for $70 an hour.
Ooh.
Undercut them, and oh, I like it. Yeah, this is.
And we can whisper sweet nothings.
Or
and
we can call
really,
our-
this is a prostitution ring. That's all we're doing.
we can
We're
call
gonna-
ourselves
It's a prostitution ring. That's what I like it.
call
And
ourselves the Cuddle Boys.
the Cuddle Boys.
the Cuddle Boys. We
Got
have
a van full of Cuddle Boys. That's how we roll up.
Oh, there's your
Oh,
free market
man.
success story, you motherfuckers.
Maybe that was what I should have done. I should have cuddled up with the road sleeper.
Man, that's that. Anytime that you guys are on our cast or we're on yours, that's got to be it. It's the Cuddle Boys back together.
That's it. We found it.
The
Oh.
Cuddle Boys.
All right.
Well, Slappy,
Just end it. Just end it.
how long ago did we have Thaddeus Russell on? I think it was episode 82.
Yeah.
It took us four episodes. Just hit absolute rock bottom.
Yeah.
We got it
I'm glad we brought you here.
from the top to the bottom quick.
You've been at rock bottom
Fastball.
since the beginning we started the Fadcast. I'm glad you're with us now.
What if we just went for another like 5 hours?
Oh, shit.
I mean, I don't have anywhere to be other than at work at 7 o'clock tomorrow
I
morning.
gotta go, man. I gotta take a dump. I'm gonna be honest here.
End it. Just end it.
You don't have
I did not
Wi-Fi?
pregame
Wait, you
this
don't
at all.
have Wi-Fi?
I'm
No,
not on
we're
my
not.
phone.
I'm not podcasting with Bird when he's taking a dump.
that's
Draw
a
the
little-
line. That's a
little
free market
suspect.
failure story.
I'm here to cuddle. I'm not here to shit.
That's the tagline for the company. I came here to take a shit and cuddle, and I'm all out of shit.
Bathrooms are appreciated, though.
Oh, man.
That's the dumbest.
All right, guys. Did we plug? I'm already. I feel
Yeah,
like I'm
we're done.
What do we do?
I hope people
end
stopped
it.
listening like half hour ago.
I stopped
They did.
listening.
They did.
When we started talking about the movies, that was where we lost it.
That's it.
Yeah.
Nope, that's all I got. I'm gonna abbreviate my free market.
I
story.
refuse to let Rollo end his podcast by going, well, that's all right.
Oh man. Close it out, boys.
Good. Good. I'm good.
Damn it, Rollo.
That's the end.
Da 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 da.
Uh,